This story is a work of fiction, inspired by real events. Names, dates, locations, and identifying details have been changed or dramatized to protect privacy and enhance the narrative. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental or used fictitiously. This content is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not aim to glorify crime, promote violence, or pass judgment on real individuals. Viewer discretion is advised. Some scenes may contain mature, disturbing, or triggering content. What you are about to watch could have happened anywhere, to anyone. It's inspired by real events. Whispers of truth, buried beneath layers of fiction. We've changed the names, the dates, the locations, but the emotions, the betrayal, the fear, those are real. This story is not meant to accuse, only to reveal, to make you question, who do you really trust? If stories like this keep you thinking, long after they end, hit subscribe, smash like, and drop your theory in the comments. Now watch closely, before the truth disappears again.
Have you ever given someone every year of your youth, every ounce of your heart, only to watch them build a new life without you, like you never existed? Imagine standing in a crowd, hearing wedding bells that should have been yours. The flowers, the vows, the laughter, all meant for you, now meant for someone else. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about what happens when love turns into obsession, and obsession turns into a headline. If you think you've seen what heartbreak can do, think again. Stay till the end, because what happened on that sunny garden afternoon will leave you questioning how well you really know the person sleeping beside you. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed. Here we uncover real stories that remind us how fragile the line is between love and destruction. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a case that might just change the way you see people. This is the story of Ella Matthews, Ryan Cole, and the wedding that should never have happened. Now, take a deep breath. Because this story begins long before the wedding, back when love still felt safe, and forever still meant something. It started like any long-term relationship. 8 years of shared memories, late-night talks, Sunday morning breakfasts, and dreams of forever. Ella Matthews thought she and Ryan Cole had it all, a love that could survive anything. But love isn't always enough. One day, Ryan walked out. No argument, no fight, just a decision that shattered her world. 8 years gone in a single moment. 2 months later, life would confront her again, this time in a way she could never ignore. Heartbreak feels different for everyone. For Ella, it wasn't just sadness. It was a storm that clouded every thought, every action, every heartbeat. Friends told her to move on, to breathe, to focus on herself. She tried. She truly did. But when you've invested nearly a decade into someone, it's impossible to forget. Every corner of your life, every habit, every joy is intertwined with that person. And when they leave, the vacuum they leave behind can be unbearable. Ella poured herself into work, into hobbies, anything to fill the void. Yet every scroll through her phone, every social media post, reminded her, Ryan had moved on. He was smiling, laughing, living, while she was left with memories that stung like fire. It was a Thursday morning when she saw it, a tagged post that would ignite a new fire inside her. Ryan. Smiling. Happy. Not alone. And beside him, another woman, Clara Reed. The post wasn't meant for her. It wasn't a message. But it felt like one. It screamed everything she had tried to ignore: he didn't want her anymore. And he had replaced her faster than she could process. She could have walked away. She could have let it go. But heartbreak, when ignored, can transform into something far more insistent, something demanding action. And that is how a quiet storm begins to gather in the heart of someone who refuses to be forgotten. The breakup wasn't dramatic. There were no shouting matches, no ultimatums. Just a quiet, definitive end. Ryan's reasons were vague, his own words filled with polite distance. but the meaning was clear: Ella was no longer part of his future. 8 years of love, trust, shared dreams, seemingly erased in a single conversation. Ella felt as if her world had tilted, as if every familiar anchor had been ripped away. Sleep became difficult, meals tasteless, days blending into one another. She reached out to friends, family, anyone who could remind her she wasn't alone. They listened, they comforted, they tried to pull her back into life. But grief doesn't answer to logic. Heartbreak doesn't negotiate. Ella spent nights replaying memories in her mind, the small gestures, the inside jokes, the countless promises she thought meant forever. Each memory was a blade, cutting sharper with the realization that those moments were now past tense, belonging to a chapter she could never reclaim. 2 months passed. And then came the social media post. A bright, smiling image of Ryan and Clara, a couple she had never met, stepping into a life that had once been hers. She stared at the screen, disbelief turning to fury. Friends warned her, "Don't get involved. Stay away. Let it go." But every instinct inside her screamed the opposite. Presence. Recognition. A need to be seen, not in anger, not in violence, but in the undeniable statement, "You cannot erase me." Heartbreak had transformed. It was no longer just grief or loss. It had become focus, determination, a quiet obsession that would drive her actions in the weeks to come. And it was in that moment, staring at a life that wasn't hers, that Ella Matthews began planning her return, not to take revenge, but to confront the reality she had been denied. To show Ryan and the world that love, even when broken, leaves a mark impossible to ignore. 2 months after the breakup, the world reminded Ella Matthews of what she had lost. A notification popped up on her phone: Ryan had shared a photo with Clara Reed. Smiles, hands intertwined, captions about forever. The words blurred as her heart raced. Her friends had warned her, pleaded with her to stay away. Don't look. Don't react. Move on. But she couldn't. 2 months was not enough time to erase 8 years of history. The sight of him moving on, so quickly, felt like a challenge she couldn't ignore. Then came the invitation. Elegant, embossed in gold letters: Ryan Cole and Clara Reed, garden wedding. Date, time, place. Every detail burned into her mind before she even held the card. It was Atlanta, Southwest, a garden full of magnolia and jasmine. A place of beauty, meant for celebration. But for Ella, it became a map for confrontation. She didn't rush. She planned meticulously. She visited the venue under pretense, memorizing entrances, exits, the arrangement of chairs, the timing of the ceremony. Every element of their perfect day would be mapped in her mind. Her dress was chosen carefully. Not white, not black, but something subtle that allowed her to blend while still being seen if necessary. She rehearsed her approach, her words, her breathing. Calm, precise, controlled. And yet, beneath the control, the emotional storm simmered. Anger, hurt, betrayal, and obsession were all present, intertwined, fueling her determination. The world had moved on, but she wasn't finished. Not yet. Ella's friends continued to warn her, texting messages she barely read. Their concern only heightened the sense of inevitability in her mind. She had to witness it. She had to step into a world that had excluded her and make her presence known. Because love, when lost abruptly, doesn't simply fade. It mutates into action. And when obsession and heartbreak meet preparation, the smallest moments can become monumental. The invitation wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a portal to confrontation, to acknowledgment, to the unspoken truth. Ella Matthews had not been forgotten, and she intended to make that undeniable. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and clear. The garden shimmered in sunlight, petals drifting on the breeze. Guests laughed, music played softly, and the scent of magnolias filled the air. Everything was perfect, too perfect. Ella arrived early, parked blocks away, slipping in unnoticed. Staff assumed she was a vendor, guests assumed she was a friend of a friend. She moved with purpose, memorizing every detail, the arch, the chairs, the aisle, the location of the officiant. Every step of the ceremony was in her mind like a map she could not erase. Memories of Ryan haunted her. 8 years of shared life, late-night talks, Sunday breakfasts, laughter, flashed with vivid clarity. And beneath them, anger simmered. Betrayal. Replacement. 2 months, and he had moved on, acting as if she had never existed. The guests began to arrive. Clara, radiant in pastel, walked the aisle. Ryan waited, eyes fixed on her, oblivious to the shadow approaching. Ella's pulse slowed into a steady rhythm. Calm, controlled, yet every step forward intensified the storm within her. She paused at the edge of the gathering, unseen, blending in. One glance from Ryan, one moment of recognition, and the carefully constructed world would begin to fracture. Because heartbreak, when amplified by obsession, doesn't need violence to make an impact. Presence alone can alter perception, shift emotions, and create chaos in a moment otherwise meant for celebration. As she waited for the perfect moment, Ella realized, every heartbeat, every step, every glance was building toward an inevitable confrontation. And when it came, it would be unforgettable, not because of words shouted or fists thrown, but because she was there, undeniable, impossible to ignore. In that garden, under warm sunlight, surrounded by magnolias and whispered laughter, Ella Matthews prepared to cross the line between observer and disruptor. The garden was alive with laughter, music, and sunlight, every detail perfect, every moment carefully orchestrated. Ryan Cole waited at the altar, hand extended to Clara Reed, smiling as if the past 8 years had never existed. Ella Matthews stood at the edge of the crowd, a quiet shadow in her dress. Every step had been planned, every breath rehearsed. Yet, the sight of him, radiant and unbothered, ignited a storm she could no longer contain. Recognition flickered across Ryan's face, shock, confusion, a hint of guilt. Clara's smile faltered. She tightened her grip on the bouquet, eyes wide. Who is she? Ella didn't speak at first. She let the silence stretch, each heartbeat loud in her ears. Guests began to notice, murmuring quietly. The world seemed to pause. And then, in a voice steady and controlled, she said. Ryan. The single word carried 8 years of heartbreak, betrayal, and unspoken fury. Conversations froze. Cameras caught every expression. Social media would later explode with clips, strangers debating who was right, who was wrong, and whether love could truly be replaced so quickly. Ryan opened his mouth to respond, words faltering. Ella didn't need to raise her voice. Presence alone, deliberate and undeniable, shattered the ceremony's perfection. She allowed him a final glance, a reminder of what had been lost, a mirror of the pain he had caused. Then, silently, she stepped back into the shadows, leaving chaos behind. The storm had spoken. And in that garden, under the sun, surrounded by magnolia petals and whispered questions, Ella Matthews proved one thing. Heartbreak, when witnessed and acknowledged, can leave a mark far heavier than any confrontation, any argument, or any act of revenge. The garden emptied slowly. Music faded, conversations hushed, and whispers of shock lingered in the air. Ryan and Clara remained near the altar, stunned, their carefully curated day fractured. Photos and videos of Ella's appearance circulated immediately. Guests uploaded clips, reactions poured in, debates erupted online. Sympathy and condemnation clashed in comment sections. Everyone had an opinion. No one had anticipated this disruption. Ryan's friends began to distance themselves, uncertain how to process his public humiliation. Clara, shaken and confused, questioned everything she thought she knew about their relationship. Trust, carefully built over weeks and months, had been exposed as fragile. Ella returned home alone. She did not feel victorious or guilty, only a heavy clarity. She had confronted the man who discarded her. The pain she had carried was acknowledged, witnessed, and immortalized in memory. Psychologists would later describe her behavior as a combination of heartbreak trauma, attachment disruption, and obsessive response, a predictable reaction when long-term bonds are abruptly severed. But in the moment, it was raw, human, and deeply personal. The incident became a cautionary tale: love can be replaced quickly, but the mark of betrayal lingers. Social media, public reactions, and the fractured ceremony served as reminders that emotions ignored, dismissed, or underestimated can manifest in ways no one expects. For Ryan and Clara, the aftermath was a mix of embarrassment, reflection, and gradual attempts at repair. For Ella, it was the quiet acknowledgement that presence can be more powerful than confrontation, that action can be subtle yet unforgettable, and that heartbreak, when witnessed, can reclaim a measure of control. In the end, the garden wedding was no longer just a celebration, it was a lesson, a moment of reckoning. And for everyone who watched, it became a story of consequences, of human emotion, and of the profound weight of being seen when it matters most. Weeks passed after the garden wedding, but the story of Ella Matthews and Ryan Cole lingered, circulating in whispers, posts, and videos. Questions echoed: how could 8 years vanish in just 2 months? How far is too far when heartbreak turns into obsession? For Ella, reflection was quiet and internal. The confrontation had not been about revenge or violence, it had been about presence. She had reminded Ryan, Clara, and everyone watching that love is not ownership, that the past cannot be erased, and that betrayal carries weight far beyond a fleeting moment. Psychologists would later note that long-term attachments create deep neural and emotional pathways. When abruptly severed, the resulting trauma can manifest in behaviors that feel irrational to outsiders but inevitable to the person experiencing them. Ella's actions were a raw expression of heartbreak transformed into deliberate acknowledgement. Ryan and Clara were forced to confront the fragility of trust. The public nature of the disruption exposed vulnerabilities, showing that even the most carefully curated life can be shattered by past bonds. For them, reflection meant understanding the consequences of choices and recognizing that love, once broken, leaves marks that cannot be smoothed over. The story offers clear lessons: heartbreak can escalate if unaddressed, obsession often begins quietly before erupting dramatically, and sometimes, presence, being seen, is more powerful than confrontation or violence. Ella Matthews' story is more than a tale of drama. It is a study in human emotion, attachment, and the lasting consequences of betrayal. The garden wedding became a stage for lessons in love, loss, and the undeniable power of acknowledgement. Because sometimes, the most profound impact doesn't come from words shouted or actions taken, it comes from simply showing up, and letting the world witness the truth you carry. The story of Ella Matthews and the garden wedding isn't just about heartbreak. It's about human emotion, consequences, and the subtle ways our choices ripple through the lives of others. 8 years of love, suddenly discarded, created a storm no one could ignore. Ella didn't seek revenge. She didn't cause violence. She claimed presence. And in that presence, she reminded everyone watching that heartbreak leaves traces that demand acknowledgement. Ryan and Clara's life would continue, but the memory of that day, captured on camera and etched in the minds of guests, would never fade. Social media had ensured it, a moment that could not be forgotten, a reminder that every decision has consequences, and every action, small or large, can alter lives in ways we rarely anticipate. For viewers, the takeaway is clear: emotions left unresolved, attachments dismissed, and betrayal ignored can create consequences far beyond expectation. Love is fragile, trust is delicate, and presence can speak louder than any words. If this story resonates with you, consider reflecting on your own relationships, the weight of your choices, and the way actions, however small, impact those around you. Heartbreak is universal, but how we respond defines the mark we leave on the world. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more real-life true crime stories, psychological analyses, and lessons in human behavior. Every story reveals more than just what happened, it shows who we are, how we react, and how the past continues to shape our present. Because in the end, being seen, and seeing others, can be the most powerful force of all.